talking about the power of honor and releasing honor into situations and learning how to live honor in all situations, because 1 Peter 2:17 instructs us to honor all people. And I gave you some examples, and I said, have you ever tried to honor someone who just didn't like you? Have you ever tried to honor someone who just was not really being honorable in themselves? And I made the point that we don't honor people because they're honorable. We honor people because we're honorable. And we release honor into situations. You know, and I gave you a video last week that said not all situations are equal in being able to see honor at work. And I happen to have another video for you this morning that maybe you can relate to this. Maybe you can't, but you can. So watch this video and enjoy this. It's better to show you than for me to talk about it. Just enjoy this. Sound?
Yo, this cyclist better hurry up. If we are the body, why aren't his feet moving? Thank you.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, use the crosswalk. I have the fruit of the Spirit, but y'all need to move. Oh, good Lord. Guests, single parents, expected mother. Who doesn't have a parking spot these days? I have been here 27 years. I deserve respect. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Take my parking spot. She probably needs Jesus more than me, honestly. Use your mirror. How long does it take to back out of a... Jesus, give me strength. This is so honestly, there better be coffee. There better be coffee. Y'all are gonna make me park in a handicap spot.
Oh, look, there go the homeschoolers.
I swear if somebody took the last jelly donut, I will. Don't make me get out of the... Oh, move
hey, are
that...
you on the ministry team?
Not today, okay? Oh, you're gonna drive a Lexus? Okay, I know where your treasure's at. Not in heaven. The sermon series is what? Putting others in front of yourself. Oh, this doesn't apply to me. I mean, for heaven's sakes, move out of the... Finally found a parking spot 15 minutes late. Oh, it is way too cold out here, but you better bring a shuttle or I will watch this service online.
Have you all ever, and you don't have to raise hands, you don't have to cop to this or admit this in any way, shape, or form, but have you all ever had that morning when you are arguing with your spouse, your kids are doing nothing but crazy in the back, and somehow you're driving forward but looking behind you trying to reach one of them as they fight, and all of a sudden you pull into the church parking lot and it's like, act good. Or someone comes up to your window while you're, hey, you, oh yes, God bless you. Yes, it's a wonderful day to be with the Lord. Yes, we're privileged to gather together. Thank you, yes. I will get you later. Have you ever done that? Don't raise hands. Don't admit to it. It is so true. Now, pastors are not exempt from that, unfortunately. Right, Phil? So, here's the bus. Here's you squarely going underneath it. No, I love Phil. I'm just being stupid. I tell you, man. Honor. Say again? Fair enough. It is difficult sometimes for us to release honor. But we don't honor because someone in a position deserves honor. We honor because we're honorable. And we release love because God is love and God resides inside of us, which means that we have the choice and the power to be able to choose love in all circumstances, at all times, in all places. But our will doesn't always surrender and doesn't always submit to God to allow God's perfect love and perfect honor to be expressed through us. And it really does come down to submission. And I talked about last week, James chapter 4, verses 6. I think I went 6, 7, 8. But I'll just read a couple of them here this morning from James 4, starting in verse 6. But he gives greater grace, therefore, it says, God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the... He gives grace to the humble. And then it goes on to say this, submit, therefore, to God. He gives grace to who? And then he instructs us to submit. Do you not see the correlation between that? He's saying, humble yourself, Because my power is released when humility is expressed in your life. And so he says, humble yourself, submit therefore to God. Then he gives us the instruction, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Submit is defined by Merriam-Webster as acceptance, or to accept or yield to a superior force or to the authority or will of another person. In other words, to humble yourself. If you want to see the enemy defeated, learn to submit. If you want to see, you go, why am I having so many troubles? Look, life happens. We all get that. But if you are like, I can tell that I am under spiritual attack. I can tell that something is coming against my house. Humble yourself before the Lord and allow him to lift you up. Submit to God. And then through the power that he releases in you, by you aligning yourself with his will, coming underneath his covering, coming underneath his authority, to be able to operate in his authority when you're casting the devil out. And that's the key, learning to submit. And so we talked about all of that last week, but it goes on to say in James chapter 4, humble yourself in the presence of the Lord, and he will exalt you. Humility is the secret to greatness in the kingdom. If you want to be great in the kingdom, you have to learn to serve. If you want to be greatest in the kingdom, you have to be, not a positive word at all, slave of all. Do you know that Jesus described himself as a bondservant? Or at least Paul described Jesus as a bondservant. What does that mean? It's a person who does not receive wages for their service. Jesus was the greatest in the kingdom because he assumed the greatest level of being a servant. And if we want to aspire to do, I hear this all the time, greater things will you do than I've ever done on the, when Jesus says this and we go, that's what's going to happen. If you want to see greater things happen, you better take the lowest possible seat that you can find. If you want to see the greatness of the kingdom, his kingdom come and his will be done on earth as it is in heaven, then we need to learn to submit fully to the Lord. That means that when we want to get angry and our flesh gets fâché and wants to expose itself, we say, no, because I'm not subject to the flesh, I am ruled by the Spirit. That means that when we face situations where people we know have put solidly and soundly put a knife not only in our back but in our front, and then found any available area that we had and stuck things in there too, when we stare them in the face, we do not look at them and judge them and get angry with them and try to rail against them. We love them. Think about this. Jesus is on the cross, bleeding out, and two criminals are beside him. One of them has been completely making fun of him, taunting him, and saying all kinds of dishonorable and disrespectful things toward him. And Jesus, what does he say? Father, forgive them, for they... Dang, I sure thought they knew what they were doing. If it were me, I'd be like both nails out of my hand. Boom! Take them down. Seriously. They're like, prophesy, you live at 310 Ridgeway Crescent. And I mean, that would be me. Like, prove that you're the Son of God. In humanity, we would do that. But love does not do that. Love embraces forgiveness and not only talks about it, not only teaches it, not only preaches it, but demonstrates it through action. Silent honor isn't really honor. If you want honor to be received as honorable, you do it publicly. That's what honor is. I'm sorry, I've got terrible cotton mouth this morning. Not a snake. Okay. I thought it was funny. It was stupid. I'm sorry. In the midst of that criminal on the cross, hurling insults, somewhere along the way, somewhere along the journey, his attitude changed. And he began to see Jesus as the real McCoy. And he said, whoa. This isn't what I thought it was. He is who he's claiming to be. It's evident, it's obvious. Look at his attitude. While they're putting nails in his hands and feet, and he has a crown of thorns lodged into his skull, and he's bleeding out, he's saying, forgive them? And somewhere along the way, seeing honor and love modeled even in the hardest of circumstances led that man to salvation. And when he approached Jesus and he said, remember me when you come into your Father's. When he said that to him, Jesus turned to him and he didn't say, no. Why would I do anything for you? You just made fun of me. Why would I do anything for you? You just hurled insults at me. No. This is going to be post you. When you're gone, then I'll start saving people. That wasn't Jesus' attitude at all. He turned to him and he said, today, you will be with me in paradise. Love keeps no record of wrongs. That guy had something that should have been held against, or could have been held against him. What was Jesus' attitude? I forgive you. I love you. And you'll be with me. Come on, somebody. That is the heartbeat of God. That's why when we face difficulty in difficult situations in difficult places, our response, when Paul says in Philippians 2, verse 5 through 11 of Philippians 2, and he says, let this mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus. What he's saying is, behave and act like Jesus behaved and act. Do what Jesus did. Don't just read about it. Do it. Don't, as James also says, don't just read about it, exemplify it, model it, and demonstrate it for all to see. So we have a scripture in John chapter 13, verse 1 through 11 that I want to cover this morning, and this will probably be the most of what I cover. Probably so. John 13, 1 through 11, we see this story basically of the supper that Jesus had with his disciples. It says, now before the feast of the Passover, Jesus, knowing that his hour had come and that he would depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. It's great that we can love 3/4 of the way, but if we stop at the end, what was the point of that? We need to love to the end. Now listen to this. During supper, the devil, having already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, to betray Jesus. So it's already taken place. Judas has already decided within himself that I am going to turn Jesus over to the authorities to see him imprisoned or killed. He's already decided this. This has already taken place. Jesus, and it goes this. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hand, and that he had come forth from God and was going back to God. Jesus has just realized, or at least is expressing in this moment, a realization that he has been given all authority into his hands. He has reached the pinnacle of authority and the pinnacle of leadership, and he is at the height of his ruling, and he's at the top of his game. He's got everything the Father has given to him. He knows that he is from God. He knows he's going back to God. He is at the top of revelation, of understanding. Look at what he does. It says, Jesus got up from supper and laid aside his garments. And taking a towel, he girded himself. Then he poured water into the basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel which he had girded himself with. Kingdom of God is upside down from the way that the world works. There's this commercial right now, and it's actually pretty funny. I mean, it really is. I think it's some type of Apple product, and there's this guy giving this speech saying, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest. Have you seen this yet? It's like, I'm the greatest there ever was, the greatest there ever will be, and he's saying it in jest, and he's obviously a comedian, and he gets up and he goes, I'm aware of my weakness, but my only weakness is I'm not completely sure, or I'm not completely aware of how great I truly am. And that's the weakness that he has. And he goes on to say these different things. Now, he's in jest and joking, but there are a lot of attitudes in our world that model that. When we realize that we are great, all of a sudden our head gets so big that we can't fit through a double-wide door. We will, because we can't fit, because our egos swell up to the size of, well, not close. Nothing is quite as big as Texas. But close. Close. What does Jesus do when he realizes, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I'm the greatest? I'm from God. I'm returning to God. There's no one greater than me. His first response, right out of the gate, is to take off the robe that distinguished him as a rabbi. The thing that gave him the prominent position that let everybody know who he was so that he was marked as the teacher, the highest level. He takes that off, has his outer garment on, takes a towel, ties it around his waist, gets down on his hands and knees, and begins to serve the people that he is called to follow him. That's greatness. That is truly being the servant. See, with a revelation that you have been given much, that should take you to a place of service, not a place of arrogance. So when we realize what God has done for us and the full level of who he is inside of us, and we have been too much is given, much is required. We have that and we think, oh, what great works everybody is doing. I am convinced, I really am, I am convinced that the people that will be the closest to the throne of God are all of the praying grandmothers that for hours a day get on their knees and cry out to God and say, Lord, save my children. Lord, save my grandchildren. Lord, for all of the needs that have been brought to me, God, answer them. What are they doing? They are taking a place of humility and humbling themselves before God. And you see, the word of God doesn't return void. When God says, if you lower yourself, I will exalt you, how do you think they're going to be exalted? They're going to get great reward. Great reward. And people like me, who have the privilege and the honor of being able to get up on stage, and people go, oh, wow, that's an honorable position. You need to understand, this is a privilege, and there is a lot of responsibility that comes with this, and there is a lot of answering to the Lord, even at a higher level, for being a teacher. But understand, if I'm up here and I just talk these words and I don't live them out, then I am nothing. If I'm looked at as being great, I'm not. Because greatness is expressed with your servanthood. And if you truly want to be great, then me behind this little stand here should be the person that is willing to serve the most. That's what I'm called to do. I'm called to not talk about it only, but to model it for you. So are you. Isn't that fantastic? It's fantastic. I think it's fantastic. If you want to reach the highest status and be considered great, take the lowest seat. Demonstrate it. I'm so tired of us just talking about stuff and not doing it. Theory, listen, potential is fantastic. But if it remains potential, it's useless. Potential must be experienced. It must have a kinetic force. It must have movement, gain legs, however you want to say it, in order for potential to be realized to be beneficial. If you have a jet that can go Mach a billion, I don't know. If you have a jet that can go Mach whatever, and it's got all the fuel in it, it's got all of the stuff inside of it, and the pilot's at the helm, and it's sitting there, and everyone marvels at the power that plane possesses, and everyone sits and goes, wow, look at what that can do. And it never engages its engine, and it never actually starts up, and it never actually flies. What good did it do? It has all the potential in the world. But if that potential does not become kinetic, if that does not become motion and become experience and remains in potential form, then it never lives out its destiny and purpose. We can't just talk about it. We've got to do it. We can't just talk about honoring people. We need to do it. We can't just talk about loving people. We need to do it. Because we didn't get called to a life of talking. We got called to a life of living. So let's get busy living. Jesus is the ultimate example of what it is to live in humility and to honor. Do you realize when Jesus washed all the disciples' feet, he didn't stop at Judas? He washed Judas's feet just the same as he washed everybody else's feet. You know, Jesus loved Judas so thoroughly and gave him a sign of honor, even having the knowledge that he was going to be the betrayer. And you're going to see in a second, he already knows. He has all the knowledge if he's the betrayer, and yet he loves him so thoroughly. And he honors him in the midst of all the other ones that when Jesus, finally makes the statement and says, one of you will betray me, everyone in the room is bewildered because they have no idea of who it is. That's how thoroughly he loved, and that's how thoroughly he honored. They're like, who, Lord? Who would do that? You know, I don't know about you, but there have been historical mistakes that I have made where you could tell if there was a rift between me and somebody because of the change in my attitude or the change in the way that I perceived them or the change in the way that I behaved toward them, or there might be a coldness that you pick up on. You go, oh, there's something wrong there. That's not the way that Jesus modeled this thing. He modeled love and honor so fully that the disciples were clueless as to who it was that was going to betray him. See, here's the thing. When you read on in this very passage dealing with this, you'll see that Jesus says, I have washed your feet, now go and do likewise. What I have done for you, I have modeled for you. And you go, oh, are we supposed to have foot washing services? Well, they're fine and dandy. But what he's saying is honor one another. Serve one another. Love one another. When somebody, look, they're in the middle of if you ever go in that era to Israel and walk around with the type of shoes that they wore, the sandals that they wore, and have the animals doing the business that they do on the street, you would realize when you ate at a table with these people, you want their feet washed. And they didn't eat like we eat where we sit at a chair. They ate reclining so that literally your head is near the foot of the person next to you and everything that they stepped in. And that day, somebody forgot to hire the foot washer, which was the lowest position in the house. So what does Jesus do? When he realizes that he is great, he becomes the lowest to serve all, even his betrayer. That's what it is to honor. That's what it is to love. You ever look at Peter's response to this? Peter's response is awesome. What does he say? Literally it says, Peter said to him, never shall you wash my feet. Peter, who are you talking to? That kind of sounds like a command, doesn't it? Is he talking to Jesus? I don't think Peter completely understood, at least at this point, the full understanding of what leadership in the kingdom is. Because I think his understanding is that underlings serve the master. And Jesus was the master, and the master just took the position of a servant. And he said, no, you're never going to do this. No, it should be us doing it for you. How often do we take that attitude? Where we're not willing to receive from someone who is trying to serve us. And we say, no, don't do that for me. Don't do that for me. It's the same attitude that he took when Jesus gave the revelation that he was going to die. Never shall you die, Lord. And what did he say? Get behind me. For you have in mind the things of man, not the things of God. See, Peter still has in mind the things of man. He hasn't got the full revelation of what it is yet. And the things of man without redemption do not reflect God. They reflect the one that they took after when they fell. Did you ever think about that? He says, get behind me, Satan, for you have in mind the things of man. He doesn't say the things of the devil. He doesn't say the things of the dark forces. He says, you have in mind this world system. And that's not how I operate. Because the great get more, the greater get greater, and the lesser get less. But if you want to be great, then you take the low road. That's what he's preaching to him. So Jesus says to him, if you do not wash my feet, you'll have no part with me. Now Peter's got a clue, and he's like, okay, wash my whole body. I'm willing now, not just my feet, my hands, my head, do it. Take care of business. And I can almost see like the face palm. Remember to love, remember to love. He's like, look, he says to him, he who has bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean, and you are clean, but not all of you. This is after he washed their feet. For he knew the one who was betraying him. For this reason he said, not all of you are clean. And yet he served him to that level. He honored Judas. Good night. This is a struggle for us. This is a struggle for us. I openly admit and say, this is a struggle for us. But here's the reason. Pride. Pride stands in the way, I said this last week, pride and arrogance stand in the way of you being able to give and to receive honor. And I know it's getting late, but let me just go down this road real quick if you would permit me. Thank you. So, why pride? Because we don't like someone feeling like they got the best of us. Who does that reflect? Who started that? Could it perhaps have been Satan? Isaiah 14:12-15, it says, how you have fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, son of the dawn. You have been cut down to the earth, you who have weakened the nations. But you said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God, and I will sit on the mount of the assembly in the recesses of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. That's a whole lot of eyes in there. Who is he talking about? He's talking about Lucifer before he fell and became the adversary. What drove Lucifer to become Satan? Pride. But pride manifests in a spirit of competition. His insecurity that he developed manifested in being competitive with God. Number one, bad move. But he goes, oh, no, he thinks he's so great. He thinks he's so awesome. This is insecurity talking. He thinks he's so wonderful. I'll be better than him. Oh, I'll prove myself to be better than him. I'll go above the stars of him. I'll be just like him. I'll be better than him even. That's pride being manifest right there. That's the beginning of where sin started. And it's insecurity speaking through the lips of Lucifer. Man, if pride can do that in the heart of an angel, what can it do in the heart of a man? Dang. I want you to real quick, and truly quick, look at Adam and Eve after they ate of the fruit of the garden. And they sinned, and God called out to them in Genesis chapter 3, verse 9. And God calls out to them and says, where are you, to the man? Where are you? Obviously, God's not looking for information. He already knows. He's looking for a revelation in this moment. It's not proximity. It's where is your heart connection? Something has separated us. What's going on? Look at the response of man in this moment. Verse 12. The woman whom you gave to be with me, that thing over there, she gave me from the tree and I ate it. You'd think that we all know that ladies respond better, right? I just felt the shifting in the room. Okay, verse 13. What does she say? She said, the serpent deceived me, and I ate of it. This is the beginning of the I'm better than you game. What's happening? There is a competition that has been birthed inside of them that says, I want to be better than her. Don't look at me as less because she's the one to blame. Don't put the blame on me. It's her that did that. And she goes, oh, no. Don't look at me. It's always the man's fault. Don't look at me. It's that serpent that did it to her. What are they doing? They're playing the I'm better than you game. Can I tell you that God doesn't want your better than you? He wants your best. He wants your best and not your better than. And the standard with which we compare is not each other. It is Jesus. And he is the goal. And he is the one that we are going. And we are all running the same race. And every single one of us can win a gold medal. We're not trying to be better than the church that's down the road. We're not trying to be better than the mega church that's over there. Every church serves its purpose. Every church does. Every Christian serves their purpose. Why would the eye look to the head and say, I'm better than you. I want to do what you do. It's insecurity that is mimicking the father of pride. Think about that. Think about that. Who do we want to look like? We want to look like Jesus. What does Jesus look like? Servanthood. Taking the lowest place. Constantly choosing to pour out, even in circumstances when it's obvious that people are only showing up to get more bread from the miracle that he did, and he just wants to rest because he's exhausted and tired, and they show up, and he's like, they're all like, Moses had a sign in the wilderness where they got bread. What sign will you give us? Everybody's hungry. And he's like, no, you're supposed to eat the bread of life, people. It's not what it's about. What did he do? He served them anyway. And he loved them anyway. Oh, I'm never going to get through this sermon. This is our struggle. This is our struggle. Let me just wrap it up real quick. See, the disciples struggled with the exact same thing. This isn't new to humanity. This isn't new to the world. They struggle with the I'm better than you. I want to be greater than you. I want to be recognized and seen. And I feel like I've been gypped off and I haven't gotten my due service and all the different things that go on inside of us that we never talk about, but it's still there going on inside and it's still very much a reality. They dealt with this too. We see in Matthew 20, verse 28. Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee, always get mama to do the dirty work. When the mother of the sons of Zebedee came to Jesus with her sons, bowing down, which is a posture of honor, but it's honor with an impure motivation. See, honor with an impure motivation is not honor at all. There's a reason that Ananias and Sapphira fell dead. We need to have pure motivations in why we honor people. So the mother of the sons of Zebedee came to Jesus with her sons, bowing down and making a request of him. And he said to her, what do you wish? And she said to him, command that in your kingdom these two sons of mine, which were nicknamed the sons of thunder, and you can probably guess why, may sit one on your right and one on your left. Give them the highest place in your kingdom. And he's like, you do not know what you're asking for. But look a little further on. It says this, and hearing this, the other 10 disciples became indignant with the two brothers. They're jockeying for position. If you go back before verse 20, go back to verse 17 in this chapter, Jesus has just given a revelation that he is going to die. He has told his most trusted, most close friends and disciples that follow him, I am going to die. And their response is, make me the best in your kingdom. And the other ones are like, how dare they? They use their mama. That's not fair. Our mama. Why didn't I think of that? Yeah, exactly. Peter's like, oh, man. And they're like, I don't like those guys anymore. I'm angry with them. Honor's out the window. Love's out the window. Why? Because position and prominence became more important than servanthood. And that is not a reflection of God, but it is a reflection of somebody else. And so they're getting all upset. They're in a spirit of competition, trying to be better than one another. And they're focused on themselves. They're oozing pride. And this is where we get the famous teaching of Jesus. This one we quote a lot, but this is all the context to it. But Jesus called them to himself and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. It is not this way among you. But whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many." Humility is the key to greatness in the kingdom, you see, but Jesus was teaching about it. But when it came that moment in that upper room when they're having the meal, he demonstrated it. Because it's not enough to talk about it. You have to do it. Stand with me if you would.